Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby and have ourselves a drink.
All right, and with that, we are back in the lobby bar for the week of September the 8th, 2025. Brian and Michaela here with you. And Michaela, I know last year was your year of whiskeys, so hopefully you enjoyed your year. Hopefully you learned a little bit. But today I thought we could return to the world of whiskeys and talk a little bit about bourbons because this week we're doing something that hopefully will be very fun.
I agree. I think it's going to be life-changing. And not just because
Wow.
we're going to have some amazing bourbons, but also because we're probably going to listen to some pretty cool music. And we're talking about Bourbon and Beyond, which is in Louisville. Louisville?
Louisville? I don't
Louisville?
know.
Am I saying it right?
I don't know.
Everybody from that area, don't
Someone
judge
from
me, okay? I'm
Louisville,
doing my best.
from Louisville, Kentucky, let us know how Michaela should be saying it. Yeah, absolutely.
Louisville.
We're gonna be heading up there for Bourbon and Beyond festival there. If you're not familiar with, it's like a 4 day like music and bourbon and like culinary extravaganza. So yeah, we're gonna see a lot of good bands hopefully, and there will be bourbon at the event and also in and around Louisville, right, which is where bourbon hails from and likes to think it's the only place that can be created. But that's not entirely true. So what I thought we should do, Michaela, is go ahead and run through just what exactly a bourbon is, because we've talked about bourbons a lot, right? We've been doing this podcast now for a long time. So we've talked a lot about bourbons, but I don't think we've ever really talked on the podcast about what specifically a bourbon is. Like what is required to make it a bourbon.
Correct. We have no idea. I mean, we didn't. I didn't. You probably did, Brian, because
That's
you're
it.
you're much more worldly than me. But
Mm,
I was like at the beginning of 2024, I was like, you need to understand how bourbon is different than whiskey, which is different than scotch, which is different than Islay Scotch. What are all these things? They all kind of look the same because they're that beautiful dark color, but that doesn't mean anything, right? They're
hmm
made very different ways. They've got different all sorts of different rules around what makes them what they are and what they're not. So you tell me, Brian, what makes a bourbon a bourbon?
What makes a bourbon a bourbon? Yeah. So a bourbon is a type of whiskey, right? So you have whiskeys from all around the world, and bourbon is the one we call our own here in the United States because important rule number one for a bourbon to be a bourbon is it has to be born of the United States. I believe that also includes Puerto Rico. So if there's any Puerto Rican bourbons out there, we could check those out. But yeah, it has to be made in the United States. It does not have to be made in Kentucky. It can be made anywhere within the 50 great United States there. And it has to contain at least 51% corn in the mash bill. We're very proud of our corn here in the good old US of A. So 51% corn in the mash bill. The other part of that can be made up of, some rye or wheat or malted barley. It could be more than 51% corn, but it has to be at least 51% corn. And it has to be aged in a brand new charred oak barrel. Right? It doesn't have to be aged for any specific amount of time, unless you get into some subcategories of bourbon, but it has to be aged in a brand new charred oak barrel here from the United States. So you'll see a lot of those barrels be sent to places like Scotland to use again for the second time because they're basically useless if your job is to make bourbon after you've used them once, one and done. It has to
Mm.
be distilled to 160 proof, which is 80% by volume, and then it has to be bottled at roughly half that, so 80 proof or 40% alcohol by volume. Those are the limits there. Of course, it can be bottled higher strength than that when you're talking about your straight
Mm.
barrel proof kinds of things like that. And very importantly to our bourbon is that there can be no coloring, flavoring, or other spirits added to it for it to strictly be called a bourbon. So there you go,
Ooh.
Michaela. So the big hitters there has to be from the US, has to be 51% corn, and it has to be aged in a brand new charred oak barrel.
All right. Wow. That's so easy. It sounds easy. It's probably not. It's probably not easy at all. But there's so many different kinds of bourbons, and we went to Southern Star Distillery or Southern
Hmm.
Distillery, I think it's what it's called, but they have a
Yep.
Southern Star bourbon, which was neat because I remember thinking even then, I was like, can it be bourbon? We're in Carolina. Wouldn't that be whiskey? And I got an earful from the maker, remember, of how what the rules are and how it fits into the rules, and therefore it is a bourbon. And we can't gatekeep on the definition of bourbon.
That's
Uh,
right.
but
Only people from Kentucky can gatekeep on the Kentucky there. And if you see a bottle that says Kentucky straight bourbon, then that one for sure is from Kentucky. So I've been to Louisville before. Technically, you've been to Louisville as well because we went there for a wedding. But I've been to do a little bit more bourbon-centric type of things that we
Mm.
didn't get to do necessarily when we were there for the wedding. So when I was in Louisville at a couple of different bourbon bars, I was told by a few different bartenders that the ultimate expression of bourbon, how they like to serve it, how they like to introduce it to people that are coming in from out of town, how they like to, show off the varying array of bourbons they have is by mixing up an old fashioned, right? The old fashioned
Ooh.
is a very old cocktail, right in the name there, and we've talked about it here on the podcast, going like way back to one of the very early episodes, right? Crazy Stupid Love. I believe we
Yep.
did a an old fashioned for that. So we've been making old fashions around here for a long time. But Michaela, is that your preferred way to have an old fashioned? Are you going to have one or two of those this week? Is it going to be your new favorite?
Oh yeah.
Come say like I don't know 7 p.m. on Friday.
Right. Yeah. I think for me, you know how you have a classic cocktail where if you're trying a new spirit, right? Like for you, it's the gin martini or a gin and tonic, right? If you're trying a new
Mhm.
gin, those are the two drinks that you're going to make from it to see kind of what it's about, right? For me, an old fashioned is definitely how I would have my bourbon for the first time. I would taste it and sip it, sure. I'm not really a straight bourbon kind of girl. I'll do it, but that's not my thing. My cocktail of choice is definitely an old fashioned because there's a way you
Okay.
can jazz it up, you can jazz it down, but it's really going to help with the expressiveness of what is going to be, the flavor profile of a bourbon. And that's really helpful for me as I'm still learning all about bourbons, whiskeys, scotches, all of those things.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and mix up an old fashioned here. And like you said, Michaela, you can jazz this up. You can jazz it down. You can do kind of anything you want with it. But let's just make a tried and true classic here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull up our recipe that we did for Crazy Stupid Love.
Well, that was a pretty good recipe. The gentleman who was Ryan Gosling played him. I can't remember his name, but he was very proud of his old fashioned, right? And my favorite scene is he like takes some time, he muddles everything, he like does the rind of the orange, and Emma Stone's character Hannah Banana takes one sip and is like, oh.
Yeah.
Nope, not my drink, not my drink. She like scarfs it down just so she can get it in her, but then she's like, "No, this is never make this for me again. This is totally disgusting." And I thought it was like the most comedic moment. It was so priceless.
Yeah, and I believe he uses a very pricey bottle of bourbon, and you can certainly do that if you want. But go ahead and use whatever you want here. This recipe can be found on our website, drinkthemovies.com, which is where all of our recipes can be found. So go there and check that out. But this one is coming straight from, this was episode number 12, Michaela. We were just youngsters back then. Can
We
you
were
even believe it?
babies.
So into a rocks glass goes one sugar cube and two dashes of aromatic bitters. Angostura aromatic bitters is the classic of classic bitters, but you could use there's like 100 different aromatic bitters you could use, and certainly you could play around with that if you want to. So two dashes of that, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take either a bar spoon or a muddler. You're going to go ahead and just mash that sugar up. Right, it's got the bitters in there. You get that mashed up, so that way it dissolves nice and easily when you pour in your 2 ounces of whiskey. Obviously, we're going to use bourbon here because that is the theme of the day. You could also use this with a blended whiskey or a rye whiskey. Don't tell anyone who's into bourbons I said that, but go ahead and 2 ounces of that, and then I like to do like a big spherical ice cube in mine so it melts a little bit slower. You could do a couple of ice cubes, however you want to do your ice in there. You could probably do it neat, but I wouldn't here in an old fashioned. And then you can garnish that with an orange peel. And if you want to, go ahead and toss a high-end cherry in there as well. Sip and enjoy your bourbon. So,
Mm.
Michaela, any other notes on an old fashioned here before we dive into movies for the week?
No, just give it a shot. If you've never had one, I mean, it is kind of a classic drink, so you should give it a shot. You should try it. I don't know. I always feel real grown up when I have an old fashioned. We drink a lot at Drink the Movies, right? We do a lot of cocktails. But when I want to feel like I'm like very mature and classy, I go for it. And you like we've said, you could jazz it up. You can change the bitters style. You can obviously change out the bourbon. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do to an old fashioned to make it your own and turn it into something that you love. So play with it. Have a good time. It's like the
Yeah,
Bob Ross of it really feels like a Bob Ross painting where you can mix and match and just make it your own, do whatever.
happy little
Happy little
whiskeys
trees.
make happy little old fashions. Absolutely. And you know what else makes people happy? That is The Conjuring Last Rites. Let's talk about some box office dollars here. So it leads the way, $83 million there. I believe I might have seen that that was the highest opening for any of the Conjuring films. And a quick fact here, Michaela. Apparently, the Conjuring universe, which includes, The Conjuring and Annabelle, and I think like The Nun might be included in that.
Mm-hmm.
$2.4 billion in that universe. That's a lot of money. Conjuring. So there you go. $83 million here over the weekend. Hamilton, on its little 10-year anniversary run at the theaters, pulls in $10 million. 10 for 10. There you go. Weapons Freakier Friday and Caught Stealing round out the top five. So, Michaela, we talked a little bit about The Conjuring last rights last week in the lobby bar, I believe. We talked a little bit about Hamilton too. Let's focus on Conjuring here. You're more of a fan of the series than I am. I think we're both kind of okay with it. Like we're not like we weren't salivating for Conjuring last rights, but I think we were both kind of interested enough in this. Have you heard anything about it? Or is it good? Is it a good send off? Is it $2.4 billion dollars? This is last rights. Yeah, get out of here, last rights. They're going to make these forever.
Yeah, they're probably going to change like who it's about. I don't think it's going to be about the Warrens anymore because I think this really is supposed to be the last one that they ever did. I don't know if that's true. A bunch of people went to see it. I have not gotten any of my normal reviews from this weekend, and I don't know if it's because this weekend was kind of tough being after a long holiday or what. But I have not gotten any feedback from my normal people sending me a message saying it's amazing or it's horrible. So I don't know. I don't know, but it made a lot of money. I mean, $83 million dollars is more than than the opening weekend for Black Widow. If you'll remember, we
Mm.
were floored. Now, this was coming back from COVID, but we were floored because Black Widow came in opening weekend with something like 70 or $75 million dollars. And we were just super excited. So to me, that this made 83 is nuts. Because I didn't think it was going to be an amazing film. I mean, I'm definitely going to watch it, but I don't know if I'm going to watch it in the theater because I don't know if the theater people need to hear me scream like a baby. But
Yeah, well, there you go. No screaming at the theater allowed. I guess you can scream if you're going to see The Conjuring Last Rites. Let us know if we need to make our way out to see that. But it's going to be tough, Michaela, because there's a lot of things coming out. We just booked tickets. We're going to go see The Roses tonight, which came out last week as well. Did not crack into the top five there, unfortunately. That's okay. That's okay. But we have a couple of new things coming everyone's way. So we've got the grand finale of Downton Abbey. So that series feels like it's been in our lives kind of forever. I certainly watched the television show. There was a movie I think kind of about halfway through, like maybe like 6 or 7 seasons into the show, which I never saw, and then kind of fell off of the TV show as well. But that world itself is pretty cool. So might eventually have to like re-binge Downton Abbey. And catch up and see the grand finale for myself. That'll be pretty fun.
mm,
We've got The Long Walk, the Stephen King, kind of thriller, kind of
mm.
thing, horror kind of thing going on. That looks pretty good. It stars, of course, Luke Skywalker himself. Mark Hamill is in that. But more important, something we haven't talked about even on our Hangout when we discuss this a little bit more at length over on Patreon, patreon.com/drinkthemovies. It also stars the one and only Cooper Hoffman. That's pretty neat.
That is pretty neat. That is pretty cool.
Cooper Hoffman, for those who don't know, is the son of the late Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah, that's it's interesting. Gosh, Philip Seymour Hoffman has been gone for a while now, right? Like he was it 2005 when he passed. And now I have to look it up. Um, it's 2014. Okay, it feels like such a long time, and it feels like so much has been he's missed out on, right? Like, and we've missed him in would-be things. But I do remember, gosh, I thought his kiddo was so young, coming up, coming up, doing his thing. That's cool. I had no idea that that's who that was, so that's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So the long walk, that one looks pretty interesting to me. I have to say, might make some time to go out and see that, and definitely going to make some time to go out and see Spinal Tap 2: The End Continues. So we're going to be covering the original Spinal Tap here on the podcast, and then talking about Spinal Tap 2: The End Continues over on our Patreon. But definitely looking forward to this. I feel like Spinal Tap 2 was something that had always been like rumored about in the ether that it was going to happen again, and it never kind of did. But you have you coming back to this to direct Rob Reiner. You got Michael McKean. You got Christopher Guest are going to be back. They're doing the writing for this again. To me, like, and I've not really seen that much about it. It doesn't feel like a cash grab. It just seems like these were, uh, a couple of people that made this movie a long time ago and thought it would be fun to do another one, just for giggles, right? As we're all,
Yeah.
getting on with our getting on in age and on with all that stuff. So I think that's going to be really fun. Michaela, you've never seen Spinal Tap, so you better get up to snuff. You're gonna have
Yeah.
to, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, no, I am definitely gonna have to. And I'm super excited about it because again, I think it's a part of a film lover's education. Um, and I hope that the second one at least, is nostalgic enough to keep everyone happy. I don't know if they're doing it for that reason. It seems like I said, yeah, well, like you said, and I echo that. I think it's more of just, hey, we want to get the band back together, literally,
Hmm.
like do the thing and just have a laugh. And I think that's going to be great. So I'm excited. I'm very excited to see the original. It's on my list this
On your
week.
list.
It's happening.
Absolutely. If you're not making it out to see a movie this week, though, there are a couple of things coming to your TVs that you might want to check out at home. Only Murders in the Building season 5 is coming back. That's going to be on Hulu starting tomorrow. If you're listening to this, and I believe the first episode or two is already out of this, but Task is on HBO. I turned on HBO last night and splashed all over the pop-up screen for my HBO was the Mayor of Easttown, and I'm like, why is the Mayor of Easttown up there? That show is old news, albeit really, really fantastic old news. But apparently, the creators of that team that brought us that bring Task to us, which stars Mark Ruffalo. So that's probably going to be pretty amazing. So check that out. That is available on HBO. Last week we
I'm
talked about
super excited about that. That's going to be great.
yeah, absolutely. Is the resident Mark Ruffalo super fan over there. Michaela is absolutely excited. So last week we talked about Sister Act. That was a good conversation about a really fun film, Blast from the Past there. This week we're going to be talking about Black Klansman. So that's going to be a really good conversation about a film that, remains, very important now. I think it's been out for what? It's a bunch of years now, Black
6
Klansman.
years now.
Six
Yeah.
years already. So there you go. We're going to be talking about that over on the main channel. And as I mentioned, patreon.com/drink the movies. We'll be covering Spinal Tap. We have our Freaky Friday episode over there, and we'll be getting our hangout here going. I believe next week we have that tentatively scheduled for. More info on that soon. So, Michaela, with that, I think we better go ahead and mix up an old fashioned. That'll get us in the right headspace, for our trip to Louisville. We can go. We also better rest up. It's going to be some long days in the sun for sure. So let's do that, and we'll talk to everyone next week in the lobby bar.